Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I'm tied up in wires right now. Hold on. Hold up. Grab the wiggle like you try to make your ass fall off. Hold on. Let me just. All right, cool. We got a lot to say about the said topic at hand. I know this is a topic that people are going to feel some kind of way about. Let me just make my voice heard in my other places. Broadcast, captures, video format. Yes, yes. We'll broadcast. Cameras. Nope. Audio. Yes. Okay. There's a lot to cover. There is a lot to cover here. For the start of the new year, I know a lot of people uh, are probably intrigued by this title, and it was deliberately so. Honestly, um, this is a topic that just keeps coming up. You see it online a lot too. By the way, Happy New Year's if you do celebrate that. And right now it is December 31st, and it is 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time right now. Um, I'm not the one to really be celebrating it. I'm not like trying to be a hipster or anything like that. I couldn't care less. So there's that. Uh, so that's how I feel about it. But for the people who do, um, it is what it is. Let me go back in the car. So, the topic of today is: Are you too old for gaming? And I put a lot of thought into this. I actually got a smaller video coming out to kind of encapsulate everything that I wanted to personally say. I honestly do think that there's a there's a situation when it comes to getting older and playing video games. And I see most older people complain about this very thing where they believe that gaming has just completely, I don't know, it's becoming it's becoming this weird space where there's no heart into it anymore. The typical shit that we hear. There's no heart anymore. Um, People are just like really, really, they're looking at the situation and they're like, oh man, games aren't as fun as they used to be. There are actually some YouTube channels that has come out and mentioned this, which was pretty crazy to me. Because I mean, to be honest with you, I like to call myself a like well, I play an assortment of games. I will play a game and be like, all right, cool, you know, um, let me try to see if this works here. And I think it's just because of just my upbringing. In general, me personally, I don't like to see games conquer me, and I will be the one that just consistently, you know, um, try to learn how to play a game and try not to copy, other people and how they play games. That's just how I am. I'm just kind of like fickle like that. Not to say that that's better or worse, but you would never see me if I played a Souls game, go online and try to see what's the best avenue to take when it comes to stuff like that. I wouldn't do anything like that. Just gotta finish my fucking. I don't hear shit. Hold on. I don't hear nothing. Hold on. Audio, you can't hear shit. Hold on. Let me fix this. I wanted it low, but not that damn low. Let's do that. Yeah, this sounds better. Actually, the radio cannot be playing because thanks to YouTube, I'm actually playing Grand Theft Auto 3, a definitive quote unquote edition. Well, here we go with the fireworks. That scared the shit out of me. But playing Grand Theft Auto the definitive edition only due to the fact that this was a pivotal moment in gaming. when that game was released. And they've been updating this game lately too. So this game looks very cartoony now. This looks like Fortnite. That's crazy. Either way, I pick up Misty. So yeah, like I've seen some really interesting conversations on the internet saying that games don't really hit right anymore. They don't feel good, and they have games right where it's like Halo 3 or it's Gears of War, and you look at these games. One of the things that you will notice is that these games are shooters right off the bat. You want to talk about gaming fatigue? These games are actually shooters that they are saying that these games don't hit right. So I'm kind of curious here too as to what they mean by that. They say there's no heart in games nowadays. There's like no heart. And so with this being said, it's so exhausting when I think about it. It's like, what does that even mean? What do you mean by saying that the game has no heart? Like, what is that supposed to mean? We don't know what that means exactly. Like you know what I mean? And I guess it's because of the way that games work now, where it's always online, it's always looking for a connection, and there's DLC that people are that you have to buy and microtransactions, and maybe they see that as like a kind of predatory gambling, no heart type situation, and that's where they're getting it from. That's probably what it is, to be honest. But does that necessitate a game without heart? You gotta understand, like these gaming companies spend a shit ton of money, and as gamers, right, we have increasingly, especially the legacy gamers, right, modern gamers, we have increasingly requested like more and more crazy um just crazy as requirements to satiate our needs to make us feel like it's better or make us feel better about it. Yeah, games cost more. There's more money when it comes to game cost and stuff like that, and so they got to recoup some way. Either you have to pay like $100 for a game, especially getting these actors and stuff like that, you know, or what the game's got to be shorter. And back in the PS3 era, like there were a lot of people that were pissed off about games being shorter. People were not happy about that, and so it actually changed games into what we know now, where they have RPG elements to kind of inflate the playtime. So like that's one of the things that you'll probably notice is a lot of RPG elements within games, not to make it deeper necessarily, but to pad the game. So that's what I'm noticing too. And I think it's because of how games are evolving, is making games feel like it's lacking something. It's been there, done that. But then games haven't changed in over 25 years. You have a stick, you move the character around. There may be a jump button, there may be a run button. There's an attack button, and that's pretty much it. Like most games are going to follow those you know those tropes. I don't even know you should even call it a trope. It's just how the game is functioning. Like the medium for gaming, you're only going to do so much. You know what I mean? Like you can't reinvent a movie or cinema either. Either with graphics or just different ways of telling the story. And from my understanding, people don't like telling the story. You know, they don't like the whole story situation. I am not beating him with a bat. I am running you over, sir. So ass up. Take his car, get it resprayed. I don't get my hands dirty. Sorry, Slim. Let me just check up on the chat, see if there's anybody there. Because I am not going to be in this fucking room for 3 hours. That's one thing we're not going to do. Um, oops, okay. And so that's what I'm noticing. I'm noticing, there are a lot of gamers that are longing for something, but then they don't quite know what they're longing for. It's like, I want something, and it's like, well, what do you want? I don't know. You gotta figure it out. All I know is that I want something, and the developers don't fucking know what you want. No one quite knows what you want. So we have that situation where developers are going to try to be as safe as possible, and that's one thing you got to understand. They're not going to sink all this money into a project that will literally bankrupt businesses, companies, big companies. These games are extremely expensive. And then we want to be wild more and more because, well, guess what? Like, we've played so many games over the course of, especially if you're an older gamer, over the course of like 20 years. We played so many different games. So many different games. So it's like, how else are you going to be wild? But what really catches me off guard, right, is the people that say that, we it's not hitting the same. That's the thing that's really getting me. That shit's annoying. I As you get older, there's a couple of truths as you get older. So one of the truths is that when you are older, right, you are extremely resistant to change. That's what it is. You're going to be resistant to change because it's harder to make adjustments as you get older. It's harder. Let's be honest. It's going to be very difficult to get some sort of change going on because we're like, damn, the brain has difficulty, whether it's cognitively an issue. But it just may be. Why is he running so slow? Oh, is he tired? Get up, Claude. Oh, they did change the animation of Claude, man. He looks stupid. Oh, that's better. Um, but yeah, like you'll notice in this case where it's a situation where, oh shit, oh my god, he gets tired for every reason. No, I'm gonna need this fucking taxi. Get your ass out. Oh, it was literally just a car. I didn't even kill anybody. Relax, bro. I didn't kill anybody. Sir, relax. This looks like it's summer right now instead of like the fall. I guess they added the cinematic view. Um, so yeah, it's being old, getting older, you're going to be more resistant to change. That's something that you got to understand. Is because the brain gets older, it's more difficult to grasp on the change, and then we just don't want to fucking learn anything new because that requires work. We're in the generation of you getting older, and most people are lazier than ever, so they don't want to try anything new. Most people that complain about um, gaming is dry and you know I just don't necessarily, it's not hitting right. They're playing the same games over and over again. There are some people that are playing Call of Duty since like the Modern Warfare, which was I believe 2009. What's going on, Killzones? So you got situations like that, which is pretty crazy. And I just don't think that's a valid statement to say that games are not hitting the same when you refuse to play a different type of game. Gaming can only go but so far. I don't know why that's such a difficult concept for a lot of people, and then you stick with playing with the same game over and over, the same genre. And most of these games are going to be open world because people complain so damn much about, you know, their money being well spent. So a lot of the times that's a big issue. Well, I don't want to waste my money. I need to make sure that it's worth it and stuff like that. So that's what's happening to a lot of people is they're looking for the most bang for the buck. So what do people do? They go ahead and they will make a game that's open world and they will pad it with these little collectathons. I mean, the core game is there, but like there's got to be a you know a vibe for which you would need to how you can feel like it's worth it. You know what I mean? So they'll pad the game that way, and then they have RPG elements where you have to grind and grind and grind. It's just funny because it doesn't encourage. It does not encourage. Um, it really doesn't encourage like any type of like new behavior, or new ways of, you know. It just makes developers want to create these games and pad them. That's what it basically makes you want to do. And that's a shame because, it makes it feel like it has to be a complicated game. We don't play, we as gamers nowadays, especially older gamers, they will sit there and they will shun games that are more simple, that are simpler, that has simple concepts. We even go as far as to call it indie. Like, for instance, Grand Theft Auto right now. That's technically a full-fledged game, especially when it came out. It was one of the games where, they had some hidden RPG elements, like if you keep running, you upgrade your stamina and stuff like that. But for the most part, it was very black and white. You know, that's just how the game was. You went in the car, you understood the physics, and then you will learn over time how the physics would work and how the people would work and which AI would do what, when it comes to games, and that's how it was. And it's like when a game tries to be simple, we automatically like discard it as being not valued, you know, which is a shame. To me personally, I feel like that is a huge travesty that developers can't do what they want to do. You know what I'm saying? That to me, that's terrible. That's terrible. I don't know. It's like when I'm looking at people, when I'm looking at the complaints that you get online about how gamers are literally pissed off about they're not being wild with new shit. You know what I mean? To me that's so wild to me that you can sit there and complain so fucking much. Especially if you're an older gamer, for sure. You already know like there's not that much things that they can do. You know what I mean? Back in the day we were limited to 2D games, right? And then we went from 2D games to 3D games, which was a huge step up. And then with 3D games, at the time, we couldn't even see past a couple of feet. You know what I mean? So when we were able, I remember, I will never forget this article. It was in like a Game Informer or something like that, and they quoted a song like, "I can see clearly now, the fog is gone," is what they said. So that was a new thing to be able to see all the way in the horizon. You know, your whole environment. You know, so now what else can you do? More detail? What else can you do? And I liken it, and that's the thing too. People are going to always feel like it's not. It's. I don't think it'll ever be good enough. I know I'm rambling. I got a video coming later, which will kind of consolidate all my thoughts. But I feel like, oh, motherfucker, almost got ran over. I feel like what's happening now is, get out of here. I don't think you will be ever able to satiate or really, I don't think you will be ever like able to conquer your first love or find something or a better high. It's like drugs. I'll put it to you like that. It's like straight drugs. There's no way once you take a drug, even if it's caffeine, right? Because caffeine is a drug. Once you drink your first cup of caffeine, you'll never get that type of high again. It's scary. It's thrilling. It gives you so much energy where you're just bouncing off of it. You'll never get that vibe again unless you take another drug. But even then, at this point in time that drugs alter your state of mind, you know, and you'll never be able to accomplish that. Even if you do get new drugs, it's going from 0 to 100. You know, you never known anything about a drug before, and you take your first drug, whether it's weed or alcohol or caffeine or whatever the case is. And even if you do upgrade to a stronger drug, it'll never top the first time where you had nothing and went to something. So basically, when you do find another high, quote unquote, you're going from something to something instead of nothing to something. It's just a bigger impact if you do it that way. There's no way you will be able to accomplish. There's no way you'll be able to get that high that you've gotten. There's no way that you'll be able to get that high when you first connect online and speak to your people There's no way that you will be able to get that. And I think I've understood that a long time ago. I was never one to really be bitching and complaining about, games ain't hitting right. If I found out that I was getting bored of a particular game, like I like action adventure, but if I found out I was getting bored of it, which I'm kind of a creature of habit, I can continue to play the same game over and over again. But if I found out that there was a game that I didn't like or it was getting boring, I would be more inclined to try something new. That's just how I've always was. I was always that kind of person that would literally try something new. Why are you always tired, Claude? Lordy, this dude is super tired. Once again, I'm playing Grand Theft Auto 3, the definitive edition. But yeah, so when you start seeing these videos pop up online and people are talking about how things aren't hitting right, it's because their first high, their first love, whatever you want to call it, the first time you had relations, all of that stuff, you'll never get that feeling ever, never, ever, never. Once you do it once, that's it for that feeling. And even if you do it in a different way, it'll still be the same thing, but better or worse. It's never going from I've never experienced it before to actually experiencing something. It's always like if I was a virgin the first time I had relations, right? That'll be a situation where, okay, cool. Um, now that I had it, then I just need to find a better candidate, a better girl, a better looking girl, but it would never be the same as my first. It's just that's just what it is. Just what it is. I really don't understand how you have a lot of people just complaining about the gaming industry. I'm like, what do you expect? What do you want out of the gaming industry? And I did have a format that I was writing, but I'll save that for the next time I'm actually when I do the video. I'll actually do the video and then call it a day. A more full fledged video. Um, but that's what it is. You'll see a lot of people, and they are literally complaining about they want a new experience, and we have run out of new experiences. That's it. We're not gonna get that. We'll never get that new experience. Like never. What was I supposed to do again? What did they say? Briefing. Okay, they say go to Misty. Da, da, da. Okay, he says here somebody's pimping his girl. I guess I gotta put a hit out on him, and I can't put a hit out on him. Really, I can't. Motherfucker. There's a cop over there anyway, so I can't even fuck with him. Bam. Yeah, biatch. Oh, he feeling froggy now. You feeling froggy? What's up? What's up? Oh shit! I didn't do that a shotgun. That's just fucking terrible. Um, but yeah. Um. Oh yeah, they did. I'd rather just drive and just go to the hospital. That's kind of shitty. But then they gave me some corny ass weapon. That's corny. But yeah, like when you see games like this, like for instance Grand Theft Auto, you'll never get another Grand Theft Auto feeling. We went from playing very linear games to being an open world game where you can like basically be like a sandbox. That'll never ever happen. You know, I don't even think that VR will be able to replace that feeling. I don't think it would be when I'm looking at that. So anyway, I'm sitting there rambling, but from my understanding, a lot of the contention is coming from older gamers that have had first experiences, and with these first experiences, they expect to get new first experiences. Like you that's what they expect, and because of that, when they don't get new experiences, they get like polished experiences. It's like a drug addict, you know. They'll never be able to get that vibe again, you know. Um, and so they need to be more open to try new games. That's a big thing. They need to be open. They need to be open to try new games for sure. You know, it says, but they don't tell me how to shoot. That's fucking stupid. So it's this, it's L1 and then circle. Okay. But yeah, you know, there are people there are people that's going to have this situation where they are looking for something new and then they want to play the same game over and over, you know. And they are always quick to shit on other games too, the newer games. Call it however way you want to call it, but like Fortnite, they put a lot of work in Fortnite, like a lot of fucking work. It's not a slouch in terms of games at all. So it's just that older gamers don't want to play that because the game is different. They don't want to play that. They don't want to play anything. They don't want to play. What is he doing? Hell, they got that whole New York vibe going on. I'm afraid to fucking run into him. Look at him. See if I can shoot him. Oh shit. Like I remember, right? Now that I'm playing like Grand Theft Auto, I remember, right, where I had a difficult time moving from, uh, um, moving from analog sticks. I mean, moving from actual directional buttons to analog sticks. I had a hard time doing that. That was super difficult for me to do. What's going on, Nelson? That was super difficult for me to do. Going from analog, not analog sticks, but the digital pad to to analog. When I first played Grand Theft Auto, which is, I'm playing it now on my channel. When I first played Grand Theft Auto 3, I was like, what the fuck is this? It was so difficult. It was so difficult to wrap my head around, literally driving um, with an analog stick and understanding how the world is. I could see everything that I wanted to see. They didn't block my visions or anything like that. And I'm just kind of rambling on with this one, but they didn't block my visions at all. I was able to see where I needed to go, and I had to memorize the different locations too. So that was the thing, and that's how that was. I was like, oh shit, okay, cool. You know, but then over time, I got used to playing games with an analog stick. That was a new thing for me. And I think older gamers just don't want to play anything new. They don't want to play anything new at all. They want to play the same game over and over again. And I think it's a being comfortable, not knowing anything new and not feeling like, inferior, you know what I mean? Not feeling that way that we used to feel when we first learned the game, but like that's a part of life in general. I don't know how that became a situation where people feel some kind of way about, what I mean? They feel some kind of way about learning something or losing. You're gonna lose in life. That's just what it is. But people don't want to learn. They want to be instantly good. That's why fighting games in a fighting game community have this issue where they really feel like I don't want, when you're in the fighting game world, you'll have a situation like, oh wow, like it looks cool to play fighting games, but I don't know. Like everyone knows, they're like, I'm not cut out for this shit. These guys have been playing fighting games for I don't know how long, and it's funny because they don't even want to go, stand up to the task. They'll sit there and they will straight up be like, all right, I'm just never going to play a fighting game again, or ever. I can acknowledge that it's cool, but I'll never play a fighting game. And so those type of people would be the main people would sit there and say like, you know, they'll be the main people to say that there's nothing new going on, you know. And it's just really funny when I'm looking at this shit, man, because they're not even. I mean, yeah, fighting games are fighting games, but look, if you call yourself a gamer, you should know and want to do something new. Period. Point blank. And I think too, this is another thing too with a lot of weebs in a gaming space where they'll play the same game over and over that has the Japanese heritage and stuff like that, and they'll sit there and play that over and over and say that that's one of the best games that they've ever fucking played. Japanese gamers or Japanese games are like the best that you can ever get, right? But then they all have a type of flow and a type of what do you call it, and a type of flavor, and it is easy to get used to that flavor and not have to worry about new mechanics. You know what I mean? So that's the funny thing where you get situations where it's like, wow, oh my gosh, man, like these games are so cool. But have you ever looked at a whole bunch of like Japanese games, whether it's JRPGs or you know whether it's action games, they all relatively play very sim. They play very similar. And so people who are used to those games, which the Japanese they dominated the market back in the 90s and the early 2000s, and that's how a lot of people got put onto gaming in general. Now the Western developers are dominating the market, and they're making more money than the Japanese, and we have more games that are Western than not, and these people are kind of stuck with new type of mechanics or a new regime of service or new regime of type of games, and they don't want to learn that shit. They want to be so comfortable and just jumping in and you know what I mean, jumping in and playing their games that they've been playing for the last like 25 years. That's what's happening now. They want to play the same game, but with a different coat of paint or incremental, you know, increases. But it's like a paradox too, because at the same time, they say that games are not hitting anymore, and I think the reason why it looks like a paradox at first, but I think what's happening is that these people don't want to play Western games, period. And so there's nothing that they can do, a Western developer, there's nothing that a Western developer could do to satiate their needs. It's nothing that they can do because they're so used to the Japanese dominance that was in the early 2000s and the late 90s or the whole 90s. That's what they're used to. They're used to that shit. And now, the Japanese for a while have fallen from grace back in the PS3 era. And, that itch isn't being scratched because now Western markets is definitely dominating that at the moment. So the East is coming back in terms of the type of games that they play. But then there's another issue. This is what I'm saying. Like, it's so crazy because there's another layer of issue. And that layer of issue is being woke. You know what I mean? Being politically correct, being like sensitive. Because there's a lot of Eastern games that come from Japan that is uncouth. It is not like the Western market will reject that shit because it's not a good look. It's not a good look for a company to, what I mean, and this woke community, right? It's not a good look. It's not a good look. We have characters with big breasts because the male gaze, or you know characters that seemingly look young because there's that going on as well. Um, Convoluted and convoluted storylines is another thing that people don't like either. So I was thinking about that shit too. But even then, like, you can't even do like overly violent games unless you have some sort of agenda attached to it. Like Grand Theft Auto in its current state, just mindlessly having like what do you call it? Violence just to have violence. You know what I'm saying? They've been on Rockstar's ass. Why is he walking like he's in syrup? Why did they do that? All right, and then here we go. He's gonna move slow, and I can't like sprint or nothing. Oh wow, he's really gonna shoot me? Really? All right, cool. I had to get away from him. Excuse me. Well, yeah. That's what I'm noticing. You know, it's so many layers of issues that's going on now. Why people would actually think that the new generation of gamers or just games just sucks ass. What's going on, Jew? Like that's what I think. I think that there's a lot of contention with the way that gamers are looking at games. I think that older gamers, I'll say this again, because I am kind of like just running around in the video game world and just playing video games. I honestly think, like truthfully, that people don't want to, you know what I mean? Like it's hard for an older gamer to like transition into a new type of video game. It's hard for older people in general. Yes, we're getting older. It's hard for older people in general to try something different. If we don't want to try anything different. And like I said before, I'll reiterate what I was saying before. At the end of the day, a lot of gamers, older gamers, are so accustomed to the Western, the Western or the Eastern market dominating. And back in the PS3, a lot of developers almost croaked. That was it for them. That was it. There was a lot of consolidation in the PS3 or PS2 to 3 PS3 era because a lot of their games they were trying their hardest to make a lot of games. The problem is, you know, well, a lot of them went under, and that's one of the reasons. Like, if you take a risk and try to do something different, you run risk of like tanking your whole company. Games are expensive, and so a lot of the times, what these new gamers, modern gamers, will look at is they're like, oh, I see what's going on. There's microtransactions everywhere. There's no heart to games. That just because you have a microtransaction don't mean that there's no heart. You know what I mean? That's just the bottom line. There's too many people that are so easy to dismiss a lot of different types of games. And that's another issue when it comes to gamers. They don't want to do anything new. And I'll say that again. They do not want to do anything new at all. At all. So they'll sit there and they will long for the games that they used to play and that they're good at. They'll long for that type of shit, yo. And then since the Western market is dominating the gaming industry, right? We don't get as many Japanese games out there. We don't get a lot of them. And so there's nothing a Western market game could do to impress someone that's used to that type of gameplay. There's no way. Oh shit, I'm my bad. I take a look at this shit every few moments. What's going on, bro? Yo, can you hear me?
Hey there, listen, how you doing? Happy
Yep.
New Year's, brother.
Happy New Year's, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, I appreciate the conversation. I absolutely am in this category.
Which one? The older demographic that's used to that's used
Oh,
to Eastern.
older demographic, brother. And listen, I've had this discussion with people here recently too. Like, I think that our games were better than some of the stuff that we're doing now too. And I know that nostalgia is for every generation. When it comes to like gameplay mechanics and like just the fun factor, I think some of those games that we're moving away from that formula into something a little bit different with this live service stuff. And I look at it like I told you, I got like all the services. I got the Game Pass Ultimate. I've got the PlayStation Extra. I upload about whatever these kids would want to play most often. Is that Fortnite? And
Mm-hmm.
and then when they're not doing Fortnite, then they're doing Roblox. And then when they're not doing Roblox, so it's one of these things that I'm worried about this new generation of gamers that they might lose some of the in-depth experiences that we had growing up based on some of the where things are headed here. And I don't necessarily like where they're headed right now. And I know every generation probably thinks the same, that theirs is the best. But brother, I don't know. Hopefully I'm wrong here. What you think, bro?
I think you're right, and I think you're wrong at the same time. Personally, now that's just my opinion on it. And don't forget, like I'm 38 essentially, right? I'm gonna be 38
We
in
we
March,
we we in the same stratosphere. We in the same strat.
right? So I'm used to I've been playing games for me, right? I think I really like 6, 7, 8 years old when you had the little Tiger toys, the little Tiger handhelds. You put two AA batteries in. Cause I couldn't. You can get them shits at like like at a not grocery store, but like at a pharmacy. You ever seen those things?
Oh yeah, yeah. My bad. I was muted. Yep. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That's when I kind of really started. I'm not gonna sit there and be like, oh, I had ColecoVision and Atari. Like, I mean, I've seen those things, but back then, I was so jaded with graphics. I was like, what the fuck is this shit? So I
Right.
already, I was looking at that. So my whole career in video games really started with those handhelds back in like 93, 94, 92.
Those were fire though. I remember I used to get those for Christmas time, man. Like you said, we wasn't necessarily getting an Atari or something like that. I remember, when I first did get a full system, Game Boy or actually no, it was an NES first. I remember when we first got one, we did get one. I think it was for Christmas, and man, that was one of the most joyous times of my childhood that I remember. But like other than that though, before all that, we would get those little handheld joints. You know what I mean? And we would play those things for hours.
I had Paperboy.
Oh snap!
I had Paperboy. I burnt that game all the way out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was my shit. The Paperboy game was my shit, right? So, all right, fine, right? My first real console actually was a Game Boy. Um,
Dope.
and then I had a Game Gear because I was a Sega fanboy back then before PlayStation. And then I had to clean my uncle's drawers in the house for almost an entire summer so I can get my PlayStation, my first PlayStation. And
First PlayStation, PS1.
PS1. It was so old, in fact,
Fire.
like how you had that one input that you could just plug into, and it was just like a universal
Oh
input in the
my
back,
god.
right? And then
Oh
you
my
had the
goodness,
other
I
one,
forgot about that.
bro. I had the composite yellow, red, and white directly in the back of the PS1. I had one of the rarest PlayStations out there. You know what I'm saying? And it was like one of the first copies there. I didn't even have enough money for DualShock, because back then you didn't
Yeah.
have it didn't come with it didn't have the sticks or vibration, which I didn't care. You know what I mean? We would get the cheap ass controllers that was like maybe $20 and it never felt right and it would break
Yep.
easy, or
Yep.
sometimes it'd be durable, but they were so uncomfortable to hold, that type of shit. So I had that shit going on, and this is where I think you go wrong along with everybody else. If you look at the human psyche, right, and just how we process information, as you know, as we get older, right, it becomes increasingly difficult to do new things. It's very difficult to do new things. So a lot of the times, low key,
Yeah.
we really want to just keep doing the same thing over and over. We're creatures of habit, right? As long as you can remix it, it'll be fine for us, right? And remember, the Western or the Eastern market was dominated the industry. It was Japanese games all over the place, and barely any Western games or anything else. You had the big game that was from the West, which is really the UK and London, which was Tomb Raider, and that had to go against fucking all the other Japanese platformers and stuff like that. Which, there's situations like that. All right, cool, right? But most of the market was Japanese. Now, if you remember, when they moved from the PS1 to the PS2, the industry got it was fucked up. There were a lot of consolidation with a lot of Japanese companies that stopped them from going under. Yeah, if I don't fit, you had SquareSoft fucking up, making that movie that was extremely expensive, almost tanked the company, and they asked Sony to help them out and bail them, and then they went and merged with Enix to create Square Enix. There was so much of that going on. Namco was just his own company. They were messing up too. The Tekken series was really expensive, so they had to, combine with Bandai and shit like that because it was just called Namco back then, you know. And I think during the process of that combination, that process of the Eastern market getting like wrecked because they couldn't like adapt to like the crazy blooming expenses for video games, That's when the West started making their own shit, especially with Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto changed the whole landscape, and everybody wanted to do sandbox games. Now that's the crazy part to this, right? Because now anybody that like Eastern games, Japanese games, there was a huge deficit. Now we had all these companies trying to mimic Grand Theft Auto success, and we didn't get our fixings for the Japanese games. Are you still there? Did he fall out? Oh, he's back to a listener. I wonder what happened. Let me invite him to speak. There we go. Hold on. All right. Yo, you there?
Yeah, that was Twitter acting up again, trying to ruin everybody's fun.
All I'm saying is this to consolidate my bags. I was really being wordy. Back in the 90s or 80s, the late 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s was all Japanese games. The gaming development became extremely expensive, and the way that Japanese made their games wasn't as efficient as it could have been. And so a lot of these companies started going under, or they had to consolidate. They had to merge with each other, like Square Enix and stuff like that, which dropped the Japanese gaming count, in the West. So there was a lot of Western games that came out, especially after Grand Theft Auto, when people could see that you can make an open world game and you know what I mean, and you make a lot of money, and it got popular, and the violence and all this other stuff. It was juxtaposed to the Japanese fantasy games. So the whole culture of video games shifted major back in 2001. It was a major fucking shift. You know what I mean? Younger people were jumping into gaming and all sorts of things. All right, cool. So you had that situation going on. All right, whatever. But I think that the people that the thing that it affects the most, the people that it affects the most are the people that are older gamers like us, because the culture is different. We have to come to grips with all these Western games and barely any Eastern games or Japanese games. And I think we're misconstruing that as actually, like, we there's a lack of variety or lack of soul, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Because we are so jaded into liking what we've always liked, and on top of it, being older, we are creatures of habit. The Western games and Eastern games do not play the same, and so like it was a comfort knowing that we can pick up a Japanese game and it played relatively similar. These other games don't play similar. You know what I mean? So now we're going into another renaissance. So we got these people that say that they're disenchanted with video games, which are us, the older gamers. Oh, it feels like it's just the same games over and over again. But we also, with the same face, refuse to do anything different. And anything that's different that comes out, we refuse to give them their accolades as well, because it's not the Japanese games that we're typically used to, or the lighthearted games that we typically get used to. What do you think about that?
No, I mean, I know what you mean. I know what you mean there, but I think that there's some tangible also things to consider too. Like when I think a lot more of the newer games that are coming out are less gameplay. And I'm not talking about like the bangers like God of War and some of these bangers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about like some of the mainstreamer games where your environments are less interactive than they were measurably, like tangibly. You could do stuff in these older environments. Like we talked about this with Battlefield. Those first Battlefield games, like you could do anything you wanted with a building, with any building you could take down. And if you look at the most recent rendition of it, the 2042, I mean, it's just the cheese of it. Like the environments are getting measurably less interactive in some cases, not every case, right? But in some cases, then they're focused more on high fidelity, visuals and that kind of thing, which has its place, right? But I think when it comes down to what makes a game fun, some of the things that we think that make a game fun are actually more depth. They're more in depth. I don't necessarily want to be on rails, running through somebody else's beautiful world. I don't mind doing that, but I prefer to have my own experience in your world. You know what I mean? And
So it's
that's where I think some of the older games capture that freedom, and that's why I think Elden Ring took off so well, and that's why I got lost with like what 300 hours in that game because it brought some of that back to me, where the freedom of exploration, and you can feel like you can do anything. Now the environments were still not as interactive as they used to be, but it was on a different a different kind of a game. But I just wonder if that is a step backwards. Like I look at games like Tenchu, wait on that PS1, like all the stuff that you could do, with your environment there. If you saw it, you could probably get to it, right? If you saw a ledge up there or a tree or something, you could probably, plan to do something. And that's what I loved about those older games and older concepts, is that it seemed like a lot more thought was put into them than some of the more run-of-the-mill stuff that's coming out now. But again, that's not everything. Cause we getting ready to get Tears of the Kingdom, and and those environments are going to be just like what we remember. They're going to be well thought out, measurably different than some of the stuff that you get, like I'm gonna say it, even in like the Horizon Forbidden West. You know what I mean?
okay. So let me say this, right? I used to do some programming. I did like some major, major research in how games work, right? And
Dope.
I think that a lot of like casual gamers. And when I say casual, I'm not talking about like literally casual, but like people that just jump into gaming. They don't understand the difficulty in balancing graphics, right? Which is the reason why you get a new console and interactivity. You know, um,
Yep.
the more complex you have, because it's all shapes essentially, right? And
Absolutely.
so,
Polygons. Yep.
yeah, you got it. So if you have more polygons to make your characters detailed, then you have to take away from the world itself. You know what I mean? So there's a balance. You either have detailed characters in a limited world, such as like Uncharted 1 and 2 and 3, or you're going to have a game that doesn't look that great, but it's an open world game. You know what I'm saying? Because you only
Yep.
have so many polygons to work with. So that's one of the things that's going on in terms of the evolution of the what do you call it? The Battlefield games is what they called it. What Dice used to call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
These buildings were generic buildings, like basically rectangular prisms, right? And so they have models. So like when you trigger the building to fall, it will swap the models and have like, particle triggers to make it look like the building is collapsing. But in the process, it swaps the models from one state to the
Yep.
other. The problem here is that you have to keep those models in memory. And the simpler the models, the more you can keep in memory, so it can swap in between the two instead of loading the models from the disk or hard disk drive.
Yeah. And well, yeah. Yeah. Now these models that they've got now are super
They're
complex. Crazy.
complex.
Yeah.
So
No, I know what you mean.
now you got an issue. Now you got a big issue. You know what I'm saying? Now with this particular generation, especially with the SSD and et cetera, et cetera, I'm not gonna get into Mark Cerny shit. You have the ability to do it, and the paradigm of how they used to do games in the past is going to be different from later on in the generation. The whole system is going to be different, and they need time to kind of figure that out. But I guess to get to the crux of the situation, when it comes to Zelda, Zelda is going to play a lot like fucking Breath of the Wild, with some added stuff. Now, when people say that Horizon is kind of linear, and I'm like, well, you can fly on that damn pterodactyl anywhere. So
Not linear. No, it's definitely not linear. No. Open world. That game's a pure open world game for sure. But what I think that people talk about is that, like, and obviously Zelda, you could chop down any tree, you could do whatever to anything obviously other than a mountain that you can think of, especially when you start exploding stuff. And it seems like everything was interactive, and it felt like the original Horizon Zero Dawn, because that's when those first two kind of came out, and they had that pretty much of there's pretty two different games, that illustrated kind of what we're currently talking about. And I feel like Zelda kind of went back to another one of those older mantras where you can go and interact with anything. You can anything you can conceive of, try to blend in potions together, see what you can come up with. It just brought that gameplay
experimentation and just like making logical sense in your head. And when it comes to Elden Ring, what you're referring to for anybody that doesn't know is is level design. You know, even though Elden Ring is an open world, let me see if anybody want to jump in there. Or am I tripping? No, nobody wants to jump in there. Even when it comes to when you have what do you call it, Elden Ring or whatever the case is, they have to craft a level. So when you go through a level, they have to kind of create like a story as to how would this person receive this area when they first see it. Where would their eyes like direct, where would their eyes like lead
Yeah.
to when they look at something? And back in the day, they used to have like different color lights. You know what I'm saying? So when you walk into an area, right, you instantly was like, oh, what's that over there? You will be led without arrows and and things like that. So you'd be led like that. That's how that would work. But now, you instead of the developers actually creating levels, and like level design, they could just be like, okay, I could just create an organic level and use AI to like basically fill in the blanks, which is what a lot of these games
Procedural,
do,
yeah, procedural generation, yep, yep.
right? And then they were like, I don't need to do like lights and stuff like that. I could just basically put an arrow there, and then you could just figure it out on your own. And that's where we're feeling something is wrong. You know what I mean? Because it is partially AI is crafting these environments. You know what I mean? And no one's going back into it. Like Horizon has a little bit of this. You know what I mean? And I say this because they do plan out the levels because they're old school developers as well. But the amount you have to keep it realistic, so it wouldn't look normal if it was something glowing in the background just for no reason, like a light source was just placed in there without a light being there, or just something fell and there's just something is highlighting the area or whatever the case is. Ubisoft games does this a lot, where the games are almost completely generated with like fucking AI. And you'll see like this situation where a lot of these games that are open world, they generate these open world games and it's nothing but fields of grass. You know what I'm saying? And they have like a system here that
Yeah.
would randomly generate trees all over the place. You know what I'm saying? Where the developer doesn't have to handcraft it. And they have this in Zelda. There's a lot of empty space in Zelda, but what they had a game plan when they made this game, and the game plan was literally like the chemistry system, which is how you can or you can mix and match different physical properties of the video game. Like fire always will have create like an updraft if you burn something. So if you are hovering over this, paraglider is going to uplift you or whatever the case is. Water textures are always going to create blocks of ice if you have like the spell to it. You know what I'm saying? Those particular things. And these trees that are randomly generated, it's not like you can cut this tree down, go all the way from one side of the map and come back, and that tree is still cut down because it's procedurally generated. That tree would never be in the same place. Every time you go into that area, it
Yep,
generates it
yep.
randomly. But they still have the physics of the tree being chopped down. You can get items, like materials and stuff like that from it. So they have a really nice blend. I don't particularly think that the innovation was, not having an icon. I think the innovation with that game, by the way, Zelda. I think the innovation was actually, um, what was it? The innovation was actually the fact that they allow you to experiment with the game physics and the game logic, I should say, not physics, but the game logic, and not tie you down to specific. Like in Horizon Forbidden West, right? They have like these ruins, and you can only solve these ruins in a particular way because it was designed in a way where it wasn't coherent to the game's logic. You know, so it wasn't tightly. You couldn't just organically solve the puzzle. You had to do it their way, and it felt weird.
Yep, yep. I know what you mean there, brother.
So I know my shit. I'm a vulgar ass motherfucker, yo. But I know my shit. The problem here, like I said before, I still think that's why I say right and wrong, because I do think that we are still jaded. We're still jaded as as older gamers that we don't want to try anything else, and we think that we know best. The problem here is that we are getting older. Our senses are becoming duller. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to be able to hang with the younger people. Period. And then we're going to get pissed off with when the younger people come and wreck your shit. That's just what it is. and that's a reality that you got to deal with.
Oh, brother, let me tell you how much you hurt my heart there. I'll be still playing basketball with these folks, and yeah, and obviously I can still got my old man game and stuff like that. But I see these these younger kids that can jump and everything again, and I'm like, if y'all just knew, if we could go rewind that clock 25 years. But no, listen, what you're saying is real. I do think that that older gamers get stuck in a way. We want the same games from our youth. We probably are less, but less willing to try new things. Now I'm gonna say that one other thing. I've actually been getting a lot of some of the dopest experiences in my games by playing stuff that I wouldn't have played before. Like I would have never picked up a game like Octopath Traveler and spent 200 hours in this freaking game, or however many hours this is in there now. I would have never done that, And so I think that learning new experiences is actually absolutely something that that can still happen. There's other like I do play Fortnite with the boys. I understand, kind of
It's a good game. I'm so tired of these people. It's a good game.
It's a good game, man. It's just listen. If you see it on your TV, like 24, that's the only thing. Like that's where you're probably hearing that irritation because these kids, brother. These kids, that's what they, because I'm good with it. Like I can actually play with them a few rounds, but like when that's all you want to play, like no, we're limited in that.
No, because they keep you wanting to play that game over and over, and it's basically like a metaverse. You know what I mean? Where you could talk to people, you could trash talk and stuff like that. But mechanically, it's a very good game. And the reason why, that's one of the reasons. Let me not hurt your heart. Here's a band-aid, motherfucker. Right? You're going to.
I appreciate you, brother. Listen, I've got a lot. I've been through a lot these last couple of days, so I appreciate
that. Look, here's a band-aid, bro. The reason why these young kids are so good is that's all they play. Is one specific game. You know what I'm saying? If anybody continues to play one game over and over again, you're going to find out all of its secrets, and you're going to learn how to do it. But also, when you get older, you get smarter, not harder. Most of those Japanese games, you can even look at, for the Chinese, you can look at Kung Fu and stuff like that, right? Them motherfuckers are not trying to stand toe-to-toe with somebody that can beat their ass. They notice how old Kung Fu masters barely fucking move. That's too much energy. You know what I mean? I'll use your own energy against you. So, like, as we get older, we get smarter. So that's the trade-off. You know what I'm saying? All that energy you have and stuff like that, sometimes you could just sit there and wait. Like, you play Call of Duty. Sometimes you could just sit there and wait. I know you're going to run in here raggedy, thinking you know it, and I'll just pop you in your head and keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even have to do all that hooting and hollering. You know what I'm saying? I know.
That's exactly right. That's exactly you hitting it. You hitting it right now.
I know exactly how this is going to go because I played it enough and I played games enough to know that you're going to come here, and I don't need to do anything but just wait. Not camper wait, but I just know how the flow of the game is going to be. You just wait. You know what I mean? Fortnite is a little bit more dynamic and stuff like that, but it's the jadedness and the disrespect and just the disingenuous and just the dismissiveness of a lot of older gamers that don't want to try anything else but Japanese games. The point that I'm trying to make, right, is actually not the fact that we're getting older or that the games are getting worse, because guess what? We have more games nowadays than we ever had. Think about PlayStation 1, man. There's the Final Fantasies and then the Marios, you know what I'm saying? And you know what I mean? We just played the best of the best, and the other games were fucking shovelware. Now we got a lot of contending games, a lot of competition, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of competition where there's a whole bunch of shit to play. We got AAA, we got AA, AAA, quadruple A, you know what I mean? We got free to play, we got, games as a service, we got all sorts of crazy games nowadays. So we're going to have trash games in the midst of all those games being played. You can even look at how many game sales that are happening. It's been increasing every generation. That we make the more it goes on, the more games are being made versus what it was in the past. So you're going to have trash eventually somewhere, and a lot of it because more games are being made. That's just what it is. So you can't call every game like that like trash, but like our expectations are through the flipping roof. You know what I'm saying? It's through the roof. And because we're so pampered into thinking that every game is going to be a new experience, and we don't like it when something is similar. But you can only do but certain things in the game. You can only do but so you can't do that much. What else? I mean, you can't reinvent the wheel. It's already been done. You know what I'm saying? If you played games back in the day, we had 2D to 3D, right? 2D to 3D was a massive upgrade, and we had to learn how to move the characters around, right? And then we went from 3D games to basically open world games, where we never had that experience before ever. And then what now? We just get better games instead of, instead of new experiences. Because we've already reached the threshold
Yeah.
of, we've reached the threshold of basically what we can really do with the medium. You know what I mean? So that's just what it is. We just got to have an open mind when it comes to this stuff. And I think, like I said before, a lot of gamers are Japanese centric. And what I mean by that is that we expect Japanese games. And for the longest, for a generation and a half, they weren't putting in a lot of work. They were trying to repair themselves, and they managed to repair themselves. And it makes us feel salty because we're used to it. You remember Creature of Habit and all that stuff, right? They make games in a certain way. They skip animations, you know what I'm saying? They don't worry about physics really. They don't really care about any of that shit. But Western games, they care about physics and the hair needs to move this way and stuff. It's just a whole different way of playing games. A whole different way of playing games, and we feel like something's missing because the Japanese people or Japanese developers are just now getting into their strive again. We're just now getting that, so that's what's happening. That's part of the issue was happening. There are some shovelware stuff that we're still dealing with, and not to discredit what you were saying. A lot of these games, because even with Grand Theft Auto, when Grand Theft Auto came out back in 2001, the 3D one,
I remember.
there were so many copycats. What was the True Crime? That was one of them.
True crime, yo.
The Getaway was another one of them. Jack 2 was an open world game. Like everybody was doing it. Everybody was doing it. You know, because they all wanted that piece of that, that popularity. Like they all wanted that. And that's fine. I just feel like most older gamers need to open. If you're going to be a gamer, be a gamer. You can't have a closed mind with these games. And I'm saying this preemptively, and mark my words. What Sony is going to do with games as a service games, a lot of people are not going to be. There are going to be a lot of people that's going to be resistant to that, but resistant to it for no reason at all. You know what I'm saying? Just by name, they're going to be resistant to it. I think that Sony is
Yeah,
going to.
I agree. I've already heard that. Listen, I probably expressed some of that too. Like to be honest with you, but like if they do it right, like if they do, let's say they do, The Last of Us, the multiplayer on that. Let's say they do that extremely well. Like that can have some crazy legs if they do that right. And you know what I mean. And you have all these factions that you can get a part of, and you can just continue on. I mean, you could probably they could probably just print money at that point, and have dope experiences, that are more organic that they can create as more of a chapter rather than having to wait for a whole another cycle for a whole game to come out. I do see potential in that.
We do, but we're so jaded because so many companies do it wrong, and we don't know what they're going to do. You know what I'm saying? So I get it, but here's the thing. Here's what I envision, and this is just on a very small scale, right? For The Last of Us, the example, me and my friend was geeking out on this shit, y'all. So I'm going to simplify what I think The Last of Us Factions is going to be. Obviously, it's going to be a free-to-play game, right? It's going to be a free-to-play game, which is going to have negative, views on there. It's going to be negative. So here's the thing, right? What I believe, let's just say two factions, right? It's an open world game, obviously, with day and night cycles and two factions. But each faction has main characters that's going to interact with each faction. And that's how they can get the storyline portion in there. So you have a main character that's kind of telling you to do something in the world. They tell you to get something from a ruin of sorts. and then you have to contend, and both factions are telling each other to go to the same exact ruin. You know what I mean? To get that same supply.
Brother, yo, if they do this right, and listen, we about to get lost. And now you're talking about like the culmination of technology, right? Putting people together, first of all, like through our, stuff that we did not have going back in those days. There was none of this, playing with your folks, me playing on the West Coast, listen with you out on the East Coast. There's none of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was no option to do that. Now you're putting that part of it together, the community aspect of it, and you're putting it together in an organic way that changes. That's dynamic. That you don't have to wait for a whole new game to come out for it to be maybe revolutionary. If they want to put a major mid-season change, you know what I mean? It really can be a thing that takes us really sideways. And I do listen. I hope that one takes off, and I hope they have other experiences similar that take off like that too. I really do.
Well, that's what I want to say.
I am a bit of a skeptic when it comes to everybody just doing these live services. But if anybody can do it, honestly, Sony has demonstrated.
But here's the thing, though. You're going to have redundancy. People are mad about Horizon getting a re-release, which is no different from like a remaster, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Most of these games got a remaster. Or better, you know what I mean? That most of them did. And look, if you don't like the game, it ain't for you. You don't have to get it. You don't have to get it. That's the beauty of it. There's so many different games that Sony makes that I don't want. I don't want MLB. I will never get a sports. I don't want that. It never occurred to me to get pissed off. Yo, that's wasting resources. Like, it ain't for me.
Just don't play it, yeah. Just don't play it.
Ignore it. Why are they complaining? And you know what the funny thing is when you hear people complaining about Horizon? A lot of PlayStation fans keep saying that it's a mid game. So if it's a mid game, why do you care what Guerrilla Games is doing? Worry about your Naughty Dogs or your Santa Monica Studios or your Sucker Punch if you don't like it. Why? It don't matter to you. You just want to complain. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these people just like to complain online. It's just weirdo shit. But going back to The Last of Us, right? Picture this every season, right? Which will be, I guess it will be like a literal season. The amount of stuff that you have to do will probably be paced within weeks. I guess a season will be a month. I don't know how Games as a Service works, right? And whoever is the better faction, they get their cutscene and their storyline progressed, you know what I'm saying, at the end of the season. You keep doing that same thing. You know what I'm saying? The whole cutscene, and you get really invested in these characters, and you don't want them to die because they're charismatic. So you're gonna definitely have to do what you got to do, Destiny style, to make sure that your whole team don't lose for that season, so you don't lose that character. You know what I mean? And then they start, and then you got to plan your shit out. Let's think about it. If it was day and night cycles, right? And you're like, yo, it'd be a really good time to do this shit at night because I know the other team is probably not going to want to work with these clickers. They got to waste bullets and shit. So if we're good with steaking, that's our jam. Let's do that shit at night. Or you could do it in the daytime and not have to worry about clickers, like Days Gone type thing, and just be dealing with like a whole bunch of fucking people. But at least you don't have to worry about the clickers that one shot you and potentially make you lose, your shit. So that's how I'm looking. That's how I'm looking at that one. Now here's the thing. I told people, I even put a tweet out there. I said this shit like 6 months before they announced it. I said the next Horizon is going to have multiplayer and it's going to be big. Big. I told people, when I start looking...
That would make sense. That would make a whole lot of sense because you got a whole world out here with those dinosaurs. You can get, obviously you can get even super more creative than what they're doing. And yeah, you can make that into an entire multiplayer experience.
Like a metaverse. Like a metaverse. Imagine, right? Because you know what tipped me off is when you start getting the coils, I start looking at the percentages and how random it was. And how you had to kill the same machine over and over and over again to potentially get that particular part. I'm like, this is straight multiplayer shit. I said all they need to is I say, and I told people this shit too. I said what Sony is doing right is they're literally their single player and multiplayer teams are working together. They're using their multiplayer teams to make that grind in their single player games, but they are also refining the multiplayer experience for when they release it. You know what I'm saying? So I was like,
Yeah.
they don't even need to do any work when they do a multiplayer game other than like little tweaks here and there because they already created the multiplayer essentially in the single player. So what I believe, right? Picture this, right? You have the Asaram, right, which are the guys that are fat. You have
Yep.
the
Chubby boys.
chubby boys, right? You have the what is it? The Otaro, which were the bamboo stuff. They're stealth people. You know what I mean? You have the Karja,
That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
right?
Charles be my favorite.
You have the Karja, which are they have swords. Now Oseram are the big heavy people, right? They're the heavy guys that probably tanks, right? You have the hunter, which is the Nora. They do the range. You know what I mean? They do like the mid rangers. And I started looking at it. I said every single tribe takes care of an archetype. And one of the reasons why they said that the game is going to be what do you call it? The game is going to be like stylized because again, they have to keep all of the different possibilities, all of the headgear, the torsos, the pants, the shoes. They got to keep all that in memory so you can have those combinations. So you can't have that hyper realistic detail. So it's probably going to look around the range of the first Horizon, but clear, you know, like with a higher resolution. So it ain't going to look like a cartoon. I'm pretty sure of that. But I think that's going to be a metaverse too. You got Hephaestus, that is the AI that keeps creating these different machines. You know what I mean? And it's just going to create all these different types of machines. Imagine if you got a task, right, for that season to take care of this brand new machine, right? But in order for you to increase your chances, you bring 3 other people with you and just start, you know, hunting for these machines and getting these weaves and coils and shit like that. You know what I mean? Where you can get different headgear, you can get bump, you can learn new combos. So I think they're gonna with this Burning Shores, I think they're gonna add another skill tree for combos in general. And for the main game and for the fucking for the DLC. But you're gonna be able to learn different combos and stuff like that, right? And now the season's here, the end of the season, you got to tackle this machine so you can win this particular season. Now you've already grinded for all your shit. You know, you can probably get more money by doing horseback riding because they have the horseback races and stuff, shit like that, right? In the game. I don't know if you know this, but the Forbidden West, you can.
Yep, I did that. I did the horseback riding.
Yeah, you could do that. Imagine if they refine that shit. You know what I'm saying? And you do stuff like that. I just feel like, you know, and it's an open world shit. You already know, like the nighttime has like the what do you call them machines that be purple and gold? Apex, the Apex machines. So you gotta really take, yeah, you gotta take you gotta, you know, you can plan your shit out with your friends at night. You know what I'm saying? If you need certain parts that only Apex characters could do, they have the whole system done basically. So next year, we're going to start seeing a lot of these games as a service with their own metaverse. Now, that's going to throw people off because it's going to seem like Sony is just focused on games as a service. You got to understand, they're trying to create like a Marvel cinematic universe with their games. You know what I'm saying? So in order for, and this is what Jim Ryan said, he wants more emotional stories for their games. Recognize what that means. That simply means that the storylines are going to take priority. One, because you know that's their bread and butter, and two, they're taking these games and porting it over to TV shows and movies. You know what I'm saying? So they're not going to get rid of single player games in general, but what they're doing is making the single player experience, making them into TV shows and or movies, right? And then you have the games of service to continue on with that universe if you so choose to. You know what I'm saying? And that's how that's going to work.
Brilliant.
Huh?
Brilliant synergy there. Brilliant synergy there. And I really do think we're going to get some news about factions when it comes to
this year. It's going to be this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be this year. And I guarantee you it's going to be around what they call it. They renamed it. It's not zombie. It's not Outbreak Day. It's called something. I forgot what they called it. But it's gonna be around fall when they start really, when they start showing off factions. I think Horizon and the DLC is probably going to be it's going to be announced and released around the DLC, whatever they're working on. And then guess what, too? And it's another thing too that a lot of PlayStation guys are, and I don't want to bring it to like PlayStation shit, right? But a lot of PlayStation guys are a little salty about games going to PC. Well, guess what? You the main guys, right? I ain't talking about you, but whoever it may fit. The main guys complaining about mid games. Days Gone is mid. Horizon Forbidden West is mid. Only the games that really matter is God of War, because it has an emotional experience, right? Because people like the drama and emotion. Or The Last of Us. So that's really two games that they really care about. And then a lot of times they don't even buy the damn games because they're playing Metacritic. You know what I'm saying? They're sitting there, they're playing Metacritic, and you're not buying the game. So guess what? You know who will buy the games is PC people. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Y'all not that loyal as y'all think you are. I'm just saying. And so, but that's what I mean. People, it's gonna be, and the reason why I bring all this up is because you're going to have to open your mind to different experiences. You want to know something too, and I'll let you talk too. I used to be a big fan of PlayStation Home, bro. A huge, huge fan of PlayStation Home. Big shit. It wasn't even a game really, but the experience I had with other people was just paramount, man. I will never be able to replicate that ever. You know, it was just a really cool experience to just walk to strangers and talk to them about gaming. Never get that shit again. And I think that has like a lot of potential. Now that's not me being a shill for Sony. I'm just keeping it real with you. That's the way the games are going to go. Is these metaverses? It's you don't like it, stop playing games. So I look at it. For you, are you still here?
Oh yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, no, and I had missed, brother. And I was trying to think when I think I had missed the whole PlayStation Home thing. Was that on PS3, like the early PS3? Because I never really got into the PlayStation Home, and I'm trying to figure out why. Because there was a time period in my life where where I was grinding a little bit, not playing as much, and I think that was when that PlayStation Home stuff was taken off. When was that?
That was PS3, and I believe it was 2008, 2009. When I think it was 2008.
Yeah, see, I was going through a whole lot. That was the birth of my first child, 2008. My daughter, and then we also moved from Philadelphia to the West Coast around there. So I had a PS3.
Are you still? Are you in Philly right now?
No, I moved from Philly back in 2008.
Oh shit.
Yeah, 2008. I moved from Philly to the West Coast, and I've been back a few times to visit and stuff. But and eventually we'll be back on the East Coast. But yeah, no, and so that was a turbulent time in there. Obviously I'd switched jobs, switched roles, grinding, working crazy hours, and I had a PS3, and the only thing I was really playing on that back in those days was like COD and the sports games and stuff. I'd taken a brief hiatus. I didn't even play The Last of Us on PS3. I didn't play that till PS4, the remastered version.
Sony had to get everybody back in line with games in general because, again, Sony wasn't known until PS3. Sony wasn't known to actually make their own games like that. I mean, they've done it, with the Shadow of the Colossus, Ico, Jack and Dexter, and shit like that, and Wipeout. But it was never any kind of marquee games that were so large, you know what I'm saying? And it was theirs, And even back then, Sly Cooper wasn't even, Sucker Punch wasn't even Sony's. They was just second party games. So that's what that was. That's what that was all about. Fine. PlayStation Home, oh my gosh, I'll never forget how this was started. The PlayStation was a horrible blemish on Sony altogether. It cost them. They were a negative $5 billion throughout the entire generation. You know what I mean? Like it was not just PlayStation 3 was just such a fucking flop. You know what I'm saying? In any facet, right? So because of the third party was actually wooed over by Microsoft, um, Sony had to like literally make their own games. You know what I mean? To really show off the PlayStation 3
Yeah.
because the other developers was like, I'm not working all that. I'm not. That's too much work. I'm not doing all that. So Sony had all these fucking people to go out there and start making these games, and everything that Sony did back in the day was just a problem. It doesn't matter how good it was. Killzone 2, right, which got a 91 on a Metacritic, right? It wasn't good enough. It wasn't Call of Duty. You know, Uncharted wasn't Gears of War. You know what I'm saying? Um, just everything they
Yeah.
did just wasn't good until they made Uncharted 2 because they were doing things that no other developer was doing, and it showed them to be like, oh shit, the PS3 is really good as a console. You know what I'm saying? So there's that, right? Um, people were, Guerrilla Games is such in a weird spot because the first person market was already covered. You know what I mean? With Halo and Call of Duty. So any effort that they've done, you would have to be so like you would have to have and then even Battlefield was just like its own lane. You know what I mean? That's why I was doing so good, so well in the PS3 era because Call of Duty was linear comparatively. You know what I mean? So what the fuck is Killzone? Better graphics? So I'm not trying to do all that. You know? So they were doing that was the era of multiplayer games for Sony because they were trying to sell their PSN situation, and back then PSN was like a novelty. Now it's like it's a household name. Let me get my PSN card and stuff like that. But back then it was hair. It wasn't it. It was Xbox Live is what was it. So Sony had to find a way to make that stigma of having a worse most online service uh, look good. So the London studios, the people that did the Getaway, came up with an idea of PlayStation Home, where you essentially could connect with anybody from the PlayStation Network. You can make your own avatar, and what would fund this service or this service? Are you still there? Oh yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
brother. I'm just on mute. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
on
it
mute
was, that
listening.
was I was making sure because Twitter be tripping, but like to fund this service, right? They had these interactive banners, right, where a advertiser could inject their ads in these live banners, whether it be a TV screen showing a commercial or a banner. The cool thing is too, they wanted to really show off the hard drive for the PlayStation, right? Because it was built in, it was large, it was bigger than what was on Xbox, which is 10 gigabytes, and they had 60 at the time. So what they ended up doing was any movie that you bought on the PlayStation or any music that you downloaded onto the PlayStation, which is a huge problem back in the day, you could literally buy a TV screen for your own apartment because you had your own apartment that you could decorate like in real time. It was physics based and everything, and you can invite your friends in there and watch whatever movie that you have on your hard drive. It will play on the TV screen.
That's crazy. That is super crazy, brother. That seems like that was ahead of its time.
It was so ahead of its time. Any pictures you had, you could put the JPEG on a picture frame, and any time somebody can walk into your apartment, they will see your pictures and shit like that, and let you know that the avatar is linked up. So many like that was Matchmaker.com essentially. That was Facebook. Because not only were your avatars pretty damn detailed, it wasn't cartoony, it was really detailed. But you could do all that stuff. Now Sony ran into an issue of copyright, not copyright, but piracy. And you know how you can't play music on YouTube? Back in the day, you could play music on
Oh
YouTube.
yeah, you can play whatever. You can play music. You can you can yeah.
That was the
I know what you
problem.
mean.
So you couldn't do
Now
that because they
DMCA,
wanted,
yeah.
yeah, they wanted you to actually basically that was somebody that was going to watch it for free. So Sony created because they couldn't do it anymore. Sony created their own like gaming thing called Core back in the day, where you can watch that TV show or whatever the case is, or if you had like a streaming thing, you could still watch certain movies that were owned by Sony, and you can play that in your apartment. And it was just so crazy, man. Like the way that you can, and you would buy the actual, like that was real microtransactions back in the day, because it was nothing like that before. That was the real microtransaction. So if you wanted to buy shit, right, you could buy it. And it wasn't just like Sony's in-house thing. Some of the developers, they were big like indie developers, right? And there will be a hub world that Sony created, right? This hub world that Sony created was a portal to other spaces that developers made within this engine. So you can go to a space where indie created their own game within PlayStation Home, and everybody will be in there. It'll be spaceships and all sorts of crazy shit. You should go on YouTube and look that shit up. It was pretty crazy. You had dance avatars that you can get, you know what I'm saying? And the hierarchy in this space was so crazy. Like you had the default clothes, and everybody that was a part of this system, they knew what a default clothes were and what you paid for. So there will be a lot of women that will be on this PlayStation Home, and it will be a lot of guys that will be like they have the guy avatar, and she'll see that you bought a $15 like DLC suit, and she will start talking to you. She was like, "Yo, if you can spend $15 on just DLC, yo, you had money." It was fucking wild, man.
That's crazy.
It was so wild, in fact, right, that Sony was afraid to like continue this shit, right, because people were actually playing that over games.
Well, they and I've heard rumors that they might be bringing that back. You know, even despite so. Have you heard anything about that? Possibly bringing the PlayStation Home back? Because
There's so
I don't
many
know.
rumblings about what Sony is doing. There's rumblings that they have a PS3 emulator. There's rumblings about that. I've heard about the PlayStation Home. In some sort of capacity, they're going to make that shit. It's probably going to be in a vein of Grand Theft Auto, if anything. You know what I'm saying? Instead of like this thing, but like, I mean, the metaverse is the future of gaming. Unfortunately, so it is what it is. You know.
Yep.
But you want.
Hey, brother, I'm on the West Coast, and I ain't gonna make it to midnight. I'm just pulling up to a little party that we're going to tonight. So I'm gonna want to wish you a very happy New Year, brother. I'm gonna take a shot of coffee here. You know, before I take this.
Facts, man. That coffee be hitting.
I need something. I ain't gonna make it. Listen, it's only 6:30 out here. I'm yawning like this. I'm in trouble. But,
Yo, that's the age. That's the age. Oh, but before you go, I gotta know, how old are you?
I'm 44.
Okay,
44,
cool.
Like the caliber of that Magnum, brother.
It is what it is, man. Listen, you have a great New Year's. I'm gonna wrap up this stream as well.
I have a great New Year's, and we'll be probably hearing from. Be definitely looking forward to more of joining more of these in the next year. Listen, I appreciate you, brother.
Not a problem. Likewise, bro.
All right, y'all.
Take care. I'll do 30 minutes there, and then I'm gonna end this stream here. Man, that shit all over the place. Okay. This thing's tripping. Alrighty, guys. So I think I've flapped my lips enough. So thank you guys for jumping in, yo. 458, appreciate you. Nelson, I appreciate you as well. I ain't doing nothing for no damn New Year's at all. It's really